when was 3 months pregnant. Michael suddenly knelt, begging her to get an abortion, simply because the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. Grace, with tears in her eyes, agreed, determined to help him rise again. However, when Ryan, Michael's friend, learned of this, he praised Michael profusely. You transferred the company's money. Wasn't it to give Tiffany and her child a better life? Your wife is truly an idiot. She believes whatever you say. Michael smiled indifferently. Without the child, she'll be more at ease earning money for me and Tiffany. She was born to be a slave. Grace stood at the office doorway, chilled to the bone, but eventually left in silence. A few hours later, Michael called, asking if Grace had taken care of the child. Grace held the tiny embryo tightly in her hand. Don't worry, it was a clean removal. One, you're really something. Asking your wife to abort the child, and she actually agreed? Ryan, Michael's friend, spoke with a hint of mockery. Michael scoffed. What else? Tiffany is due soon. I can't let her and the child suffer. Ryan chuckled softly. That's a brilliant move. Making your wife believe the company is going bankrupt. Having her shoulder the mess, while you use the money to buy Tiffany a big house and hire a postpartum nurse. Michael's tone was filled with unconcealed contempt. She was born to be a slave. Without the child, she can focus solely on earning money for me. Has suffered any less these past few years following me? Should I compensate her? Or that old hag? Grace stood frozen, as if the blood in her veins had turned to ice. So, his talk of the company going bankrupt was a lie. He asked Grace to abort the child, not out of desperation, but to make room for another woman. The conversation in the office continued, but Grace couldn't hear it clearly. Her ears buzzed. Suddenly, Michael's phone rang. He answered the phone, his voice instantly softening. You're going into labor? Good. Don't worry. I'll be right there to pick you up. He hung up the phone, grabbed the jacket from the back of his chair, and rushed out. Grace instinctively hid in the fire escape at the end of the hallway, watching his hurried figure disappear from her sight. She couldn't help but touch her stomach. To conceive this child, Grace had taken fertility treatments for over half a year. Each month, she went to the hospital for ovulation monitoring, looking at those cold instruments, feeling both anticipation and fear. Michael always said he was busy and never accompanied Grace once. Grace thought he was worried about the company and felt sorry for him working so hard, always smiling after checkups and saying, everything's fine, don't worry. Now, looking back, it was laughable. He wasn't busy, he simply didn't care. This child, from the very beginning, was only Grace's expectation. Grace took a taxi to the hospital. Michael had already scheduled Grace's surgery for today and had promised to come with her. But unexpectedly, Tiffany also happened to be giving birth that day. He chose Tiffany without hesitation. Upon reaching the maternity ward entrance, the nurse informed Grace that Dr. Ethan, who had been scheduled, was temporarily reassigned. Only an intern doctor was arranged to perform Grace's surgery. Grace nodded, but her heart sank. Later, Grace learned that because Tiffany was in labor, Michael had called away all the obstetricians in the hospital. I heard the patient is Tiffany. She's so beautiful. Mr. Gu put company matters aside for her. Grace, on the other hand, was like an idiot, believing all his words. The surgery was much more painful than expected. Grace could feel blood constantly flowing, soaking the bedsheet, sticky and warm, but didn't utter a sound, just bit her lip tightly. Only after the surgery was over did Grace slowly release her whitened lips. Her belly was empty. The child Grace had longed for was gone, just like that. Just then, her phone rang. It was Michael. Grace stared at the flickering name on the screen for a long time before answering. Did you get rid of the child? His voice was devoid of emotion, as if asking about something insignificant. Grace touched her stomach, which felt hollow. Yes, Grace said softly. It was a clean removal. He seemed to sigh with relief, then get some good rest for a few days, and then return to work at the company. With that, he hung up the phone abruptly. Leaving the hospital, Grace stood by the roadside, waiting for a car. The wind blew, sending chills through her. Entering the house, the entryway light was on. Grace had forgotten to turn it off when she left that morning. This home, everywhere bore Grace's mark, yet there was little belonging to Michael. He rarely came home this past year, but Grace had always thought he was busy with company affairs. Grace huddled on the sofa, unwilling to move. A sticky warmth spread beneath her. Grace knew it was blood. The sound of the lock turning indicated Michael's return. He changed his shoes and walked in, frowning when he saw Grace curled up on the sofa. "Why aren't you lying down in the room?" he asked, his voice flat. "Too lazy to move," Grace said in a low voice. He walked over, glanced at Grace, but didn't notice the bloodstain on the sofa. "Abortions are like this. The pain will pass in a few days. There are many things waiting to be dealt with at the company. Rest for a day or two and get back to work as soon as possible." Grace looked up at him. His eyes held no concern, only urgency. "I understand," Grace said. He nodded, then turned to the bedroom to pack. Soon, he came out with a suitcase. "I'll be on a business trip for a while. Please take care of company matters." Grace acknowledged him, not asking where he was going or for how long. He probably thought Grace's attitude was sensible, and his lips twitched. "When I get back, we'll figure out the company issues." With that, he left. The closing door wasn't loud, but it felt like a hammer blow to Grace's heart. Grace looked down at the sofa. The bloodstain on the dark fabric grew larger. As stood up, her legs gave out, and she almost fell. There was no choice. Grace had to go back to the hospital. Grace registered, waited in line, and after the doctor's examination, she was told there were remnants and to wait in the clinic room upstairs. The elevator was crowded. Grace leaned against the corner. When the doors opened, Grace saw Michael walk in, holding a bouquet of pink roses, accompanied by a caregiver. The top floor housed the private suite, with carpeted hallways that were quiet. Tiffany entered the innermost room, and the caregiver opened the door for Michael. Tiffany sat by the bed, took the flowers from Michael's hand, and carefully arranged them in a vase. Michael, head bowed, listened to Tiffany speak, his face filled with doting affection. Grace stood at the doorway, stiff with shock, until a voice suddenly broke the silence. "Madam, who are you looking for?" A nurse walked over, her voice soft, yet it startled Michael. Michael spun around sharply when he saw Grace. A flicker of panic crossed his eyes, but he quickly composed himself and walked towards Grace. He pulled Grace to the other end of the hallway, lowering his voice. "Why are you here?" "A follow-up," Grace said. He nodded, seemingly relieved. "Tiffany just gave birth. She's the company's CFO and helped a lot, so I came to see her." Grace said nothing, watching him lie. He, in turn, became agitated. "Are you suspecting something? We're just colleagues. Don't be petty and jealous. The company is what matters now." "You're overthinking it," Grace said. "The doctor said there were remnants from the abortion and asked me to come back for another checkup." Only then did he relax, his tone softening. "Then hurry and get your checkup. Call me if anything happens. I can't leave here. Tiffany just gave birth and needs someone by her side." Just then, Tiffany's voice drifted out, soft and with a hint of feigned concern. "Grace, is an abortion very painful? You can barely stand, and you must have bled a lot. Didn't you? Women truly have it hard, whether it's giving birth or having an abortion. It's all suffering. But you're still young. You'll have other chances in the future. Unlike me, I'm only hoping for this one." Watching's false concern, Grace suddenly spoke, looking at her and asking, "Who is the child's father?" Tiffany froze for a moment, then a blush spread across her face, and her eyes darted towards Michael, holding a hint of shyness. "He's a very excellent man." "Grace, you know him too?" She deliberately didn't say the name, just looked at Grace, her eyes carrying a touch of provocation. Michael frowned and tugged at Grace. "Why ask such things? Tiffany needs rest. Don't disturb her. Her husband is an important client of the company, and he's abroad and can't rush back right now. What's wrong with me taking care of her?" Michael's tone became impatient. "It's just an abortion. What's the big deal? Do you have to be so dramatic? The company is waiting for us to save it. Can't you be more sensible?" Grace looked at him and suddenly smiled. "All right, you take good care of MS. Sheen, don't offend the client," Grace said. Grace didn't look at them again and turned to leave the room. Grace recalled that when Tiffany first joined the company, Michael had been especially solicitous towards her. He always called on her to speak in meetings and often took her on business trips. Grace had told herself then that they were colleagues. Michael was the boss, and it was normal to take extra care of a subordinate. On the way to the clinic room, Grace's phone rang. It was a text message from Michael. "My tone was a bit harsh earlier. Don't be angry. Once I finish things here, I'll come find you. The company still needs us to work together. Don't be unreasonable." Grace looked at the text, Her finger paused on the screen, but she didn't reply. During the checkup, the doctor looked at the scans with a somewhat serious expression. The recovery isn't good, and your chances of getting pregnant in the future might be very low. Where is your husband? Why didn't he come with you? Grace sat there, feeling very calm. Then she spoke, answering faintly. He's dead. A full week later, Michael finally came home, accompanied by Tiffany and her child. Tiffany glanced at Grace timidly. Grace, I'm really causing you trouble. I didn't want to come, but Michael insisted it would be easier to take care of me at home. Grace looked at Michael. There was no apprehension in his eyes. Tiffany's husband won't be back for a while, and I thought since you're also a woman, you could take care of Tiffany more carefully. With that, he patted Grace's shoulder. Everything is for the company. Grace couldn't help but offer a pale smile. It's fine. Come in. Grace took the bag from Tiffany's hand, acting understanding. Then, Grace went to the kitchen to brew a cup of honey tea. Drink this after giving birth. She took it, her fingertip gently brushing Grace's hand, as if by accident. Thank you, Grace. You're so kind. However, less than 10 minutes later, she suddenly gasped, clutching her lower abdomen. Her brows tightly furrowed. Why does it suddenly hurt so much? Michael was on the phone in the living room. Hearing this, he immediately hung up and rushed over to support her. What's wrong? Where does it hurt? Tiffany shook her head, her face pale. I don't know. It just comes in waves. Michael's gaze sharply swept to Grace, filled with suspicion. What did you give her to drink? Honey tea, Grace said. Impossible. He raised his voice. She was fine just now. She drank your tea and then felt pain. Did you put something in it? Tiffany pulled his arm. Michael, don't say that. I might just have caught a chill. No need to explain for her. Michael stared fixedly at Grace. I'm asking you, did you do this? Grace looked at the fire in his eyes, devoid of any trust. Suddenly, Grace didn't want to explain anymore. Yes. Who told her to take my place, sleep in my bed, and use my things? With a slap, a handprint landed on Grace's face. Grace, are you crazy? Michael pointed at Grace, his hand trembling. Tiffany just gave birth. Do you want to kill her? How could I have married such a malicious and vicious woman? If it weren't for your usefulness to the company, I would have divorced you long ago. Tiffany was still crying nearby, looking pitiful. Michael, don't scold Grace. Maybe she was just impulsive. She looked up. When she looked at Grace, her eyelashes were wet with tears, but her eyes shone brightly, full of triumph. Grace didn't cry or speak. Grace turned and went back to the room, closing the door behind her. Her cheek was still burning. Grace touched it in the mirror, and a little red stained her fingertip. He had hit Grace with so much force. Grace slept restlessly that night, feeling cold. Grace reached out beside her. It was empty. Michael wasn't there. There were faint footsteps in the hallway. Grace put on a jacket and walked to the guest room door. The door was ajar, letting out a sliver of light. You shouldn't have hit her so hard today. You two aren't divorced yet. I'm afraid she'll make a scene. Tiffany's voice was very low. Michael snorted. She deserved it. Then when will you divorce her and marry me? You promised me that once she helped you build up the company, you'd divorce her. Grace vaguely saw Tiffany put her arms around Michael's neck, their lips very close. I know, but now isn't the time. Michael sighed, his voice softening. Just a little longer. Once I take over all the client resources from her, I'll divorce her immediately. With that, Michael kissed Tiffany's lips. Even at home, it still seemed so impatient. The sounds of intimacy were faint, but every sound was powerful. In the nursery, the baby was sleeping soundly. Grace walked over, bent down, and picked up the child. His eyes were exactly like Michael's. The little one stirred, snuggled closer to Grace's embrace, but didn't wake up. Stepping out of the building, the night wind on Grace's face was a bit chilly. An hour later, they finally discovered the child was gone. Michael called, his frantic voice coming through. Grace, where did you take Tiffany's child? Bring him back immediately. Grace looked down at the little one in her arms. His breathing was even, his eyelashes long. Grace smiled slightly. Her child is gone. Why are you so anxious? There was a few seconds of silence on the phone, followed by Michael's enraged roar. Her child is her flesh and blood. Anyone would be anxious. Grace, do you have any humanity? Bring the child back immediately. Tiffany's cries followed, sharp and desperate. Grace, please, give me back my child. He's my life. I'll give you anything. Just don't harm my child. Grace listened to her wailing, her heart unmoved. Come to the company to find me tomorrow. With that, Grace hung up the phone and turned it off. The next morning, when Grace arrived at the company, Michael and Tiffany were already waiting in the company lobby. Tiffany hadn't even put on makeup, her eyes swollen like walnuts. When she saw Grace, she pounced. Where's the child? Where's my child? She grabbed Grace's arm, her nails almost digging into Grace's flesh. Grace stepped back, breaking free. I didn't bring the child. Tiffany seemed to have all her strength drained, collapsing slightly, supported by Michael. Where did you hide him? She shrieked hysterically. Did you do something to him? Grace, I'll fight you. Her voice was so loud it attracted many employees coming to work. What's going on? Why is accountant crying like that? It seems her child is missing, and it's related to Mrs. Gu. When did accountant have a child? I didn't hear she was married. Grace looked at Tiffany, her voice calm. Why ask me where your child is? You should ask the child's father. Michael's face turned livid. He stepped forward and grabbed Grace's collar. Where exactly did you take the child? Don't play dumb here. The collar tightened around Grace's neck. Grace pushed him away with force. The murmurs around them grew louder. Mr. Gu seems way too concerned about accountant, doesn't he? A while ago, when accountant was pregnant, Mr. Gu brought her bird's nest soup every day. I already thought something was off. Could it be that the child is Mr. Gu's? Then, Gu rumors flooded in like a tide. Tiffany's face turned ashen, and she covered her face, crying. No. Don't spread rumors. Michael glared at Grace, his eyes like he wanted to devour her. Grace, do you want to ruin the company? Aren't you satisfied yet? Tiffany's husband is our biggest client. If you cause a scene like this, do you want everyone to lose their jobs? Grace looked at Michael. His eyes were full of warning, as if Grace continuing to make a fuss would make her a sinner. All right, I apologize. Grace nodded. Michael's expression softened slightly, and Tiffany also stopped crying, looking up at Grace, a hint of triumph in her eyes. However, Grace walked up to Tiffany, just when everyone thought Grace was about to bow her head. Grace raised her hand and slapped Tiffany across the face. Slap! The sound was crisp and loud. The company lobby instantly fell silent. Everyone was stunned. Tiffany clutched her face, looking at Grace in disbelief. You dared to hit me? Grace looked at her swollen cheek. This slap is for my unborn child. Michael's rage came swiftly and fiercely. He instinctively raised his hand and slapped Grace across the face. It was heavier than last time. Grace immediately tasted blood. He didn't look at Grace, instead turning to shield Tiffany in his arms, yelling at the surrounding employees. You all saw it. The company is in this state because of her. Malicious and vicious. Intensely jealous. And now she dares to kidnap a child and stir up trouble. Someone in the crowd immediately echoed him, especially the longtime employees whose salaries had been cut due to declining company performance. They rushed forward, eyes red with anger. Exactly! If it weren't for her meddling, would the company be in such a difficult position? Mr. Gu, just divorce her. Marrying a woman like that brings the worst luck. Hit her. Let her know what happens when you're ruining the company. Someone shoved Grace. Grace stumbled back, hitting the front desk behind her, her lower back striking the table corner, making her gasp in pain. Then, more hands reached out, pulling Grace's hair, grabbing Grace's clothes. Someone had even started a live stream, posting all of this online. Those who didn't know would have thought Grace was the mistress. Michael stood not far away, watching Grace being shoved, his face devoid of expression. Tiffany hid behind him, showing half her face, the smile in her eyes completely unconcealed. In the chaos, police sirens approached from afar. The police are here, someone shouted, and those who were physically involved immediately stopped, retreating a bit. 2 police officers walked in, seeing the mess on the floor and Grace's disheveled appearance. They frowned. What's going on? Michael stepped forward, his tone very forceful. Officers, this is my wife. She's caused the company to be on the verge of bankruptcy and kidnapped someone else's child. The employees were fed up and couldn't hold back. The officer glanced at him. Even family matters don't allow for assault. The law prohibits it. She's my wife. Michael raised his voice, self-righteously. She's messed up the home like this, ruined the company like this. What's wrong with hitting her a few times? Shouldn't she be taught a lesson? Furthermore, she hid Tiffany's child. Quickly arrest her. Tiffany also cried out in agreement, "Officer, my child was just born a few days ago. She definitely wants revenge on me and wants to harm my child." The officer looked at Grace. "Is the child with you?" Grace slowly got up from the floor, blood still oozing from her lip. "Yes, the child is with me." Tiffany tried to rush forward like a madwoman but was held back by the officer. "Where did you hide him? Give him back to me, you lunatic! Didn't you ask me to take care of the child for you?" Grace looked at her, her voice very calm. Tiffany froze for a moment. Then her face turned beet red. "I didn't. You're lying. When did I ever ask you to take him? You just want to get revenge on me and deliberately snatched my child." "Me getting revenge on you?" Grace looked at her, then glanced at Michael beside them. "Why would I get revenge on you? Or perhaps, this child is Michael's after all? As long as you admit the child is Michael's, I will return the child to you right now." Everyone around held their breath. Even the officers looked at Tiffany. Michael's face instantly darkened. He tugged at Tiffany's arm. "Tiffany, ignore her. She's trying to sow discord," but was provoked by Grace's words. She violently shook off Michael's hand and, with red eyes, shouted, "Yes, this child is Michael's. We've been together for a long time. Are you satisfied now?" Silence fell over the company lobby. Everyone was stunned, including Michael. He stood with his mouth open, unable to utter a word for a long time. "Is it really Mr. Goose? My, this is just too much." Michael's face flushed red then pale. After a long while, he suddenly stiffened his neck, giving up completely, and spoke. "So what if he's mine? Grace, you can't have children. Is it wrong for me to want a child?" Listening to these words, Grace found them absurd. Michael could actually say such shameless things. "I can't have children?" Grace raised her voice, her chest heaving violently. "I just aborted a child for you." Michael, however, shoved Grace. "Nonsense. Since I knew you couldn't get pregnant. How long has it been since I slept in the same bed as you? You know best whose child that was in your stomach. Some other man's child. Were you afraid the truth would come out? That I'd discover it? So you willingly got rid of it? To avoid humiliating us all when it was born looking nothing like me." The surrounding discussions immediately took a different turn. "Right. Mrs. Gu did see many doctors 2 years ago, and they all said it was hard for her to conceive. Now she's suddenly pregnant. It does seem a bit strange. Could it really be that she was with someone else? Then, Gu is truly pathetic. Being kept in the dark. Cheating first and still having the nerve to make a scene? She's definitely mistress material." Grace looked at Michael. The triumph in his eyes almost overflowed, as if this way he could dump all the blame on Grace. Grace couldn't help but laugh, a dry laugh that made her shoulders tremble. "Michael, they probably haven't seen you like this, have they?" Then, a video began playing on the office projector. In the footage, Michael knelt before Grace, his face haggard. "Grace, please, abort the child. The company is truly on the verge of bankruptcy. We really can't afford a child right now. When we recover, can we have one then?" The company lobby fell silent again. Everyone stared at the image on the wall, their expressions complex. Michael's face turned completely white. Grace looked at him and asked again, "Tell me, whose child was in my stomach?" The veins on Michael's forehead pulsed. Then, he violently kicked over a nearby chair. "What's wrong with me doing this?" Michael's voice carried the desperation of giving up completely. "Now that the company is failing, I told her to abort the child and focus on work. Is that wrong? I did it for the company, so everyone could have food on the table." Several department managers immediately agreed. "Yes, everyone relies on the company for their livelihood. Please, Grace, bear with it for our sake." They spoke one after another, as if Grace insisting on pursuing the matter would make her the culprit. Tiffany took the opportunity to step forward 2 paces, tears in her eyes. "Grace, let bygones be bygones. Please give me back my child. He's still so small. He can't be without his mother." Grace looked at her, then at the conciliatory employees. Grace suddenly understood that for them, profit would always come first. Michael could pay their salaries and keep their jobs, so they would rather believe his lies and push Grace out as a scapegoat. Grace smiled, a somewhat dry laugh. "The child? He's dead." "What did you say?" Tiffany's voice suddenly rose. She lunged at Grace. "You killed my child?" "Grace, I'll fight you." The officer promptly restrained her. She struggled and shrieked, "You murderer! Give me back my child! Do you really care about your child?" Grace gave Tiffany a cold smile. "If you cared, Why were you messing around with Michael in the room late at night, not even knowing your child was taken away? Grace took out her phone again and played the audio recording from before. The unbearable conversations from the room clearly played out. Once the company stabilizes, I'll divorce her immediately. The sounds of intimacy were even more grating. Michael, however, seemed to throw caution to the wind, pulling Tiffany behind him. Yes, we truly love each other. Grace, you were always extraneous. Now that you've killed our child, you must pay the price. Officer, quickly arrest her. The two police officers exchanged glances. One of them took out handcuffs and walked towards Grace. Just then, a baby's cry suddenly rang out. Everyone froze, looking towards the source of the sound. At the company lobby entrance, Chloe stood holding a baby blanket, the child in her arms still crying. Grace looked at Michael and Tiffany's instantly agitated faces, and sneered. I wouldn't even dirty my hands with the cheater's bastard child. As the baby's cries faded, Tiffany lunged forward like a madwoman, snatching the child from Chloe's arms and clutching him tightly to her chest. The little one cried again from being squeezed, but she didn't care, just bent down to kiss the child's forehead, tears streaming down her face. Son, Mommy thought I'd never see you again. After a few sobs, she suddenly looked up, her eyes red as if about to bleed, staring fixedly at Grace. Officer, this is attempted murder. She wanted to kill my child. She must be arrested and sentenced. Michael stood beside her, his face livid, echoing Tiffany's words. Yes, such a malicious and vicious woman shouldn't be let go. Grace, we're getting a divorce immediately, and you won't take a single penny. However, before he could finish speaking, Grace took a document from her bag and threw it in front of him. The divorce papers? I already signed them. Michael snatched the agreement, his fingers quickly skimming the page. When he saw the line, all marital assets to the wife, husband voluntarily leaves with nothing, he crumpled the agreement into a ball and slammed it onto the floor. Why? He roared, the veins on his neck bulging. Why should I leave with nothing? I built this company from the ground up. What are you even? You know perfectly well what I am, Grace said. Grace bent down, picked up the agreement, and smoothed it out again. The company's early startup capital came from my parents, and I tirelessly brought in the first batch of clients. Do you think you could have sustained it until now all by yourself? He was about to say something else when the company lobby doors were suddenly pushed open. 3 people in uniform walked in, their badges reading Economic Unit. The leader showed his ID. Michael, we've received a report that you're suspected of embezzling company funds and illegally transferring assets. Come with us. Michael took a step back, pointing at Grace. It's her. Grace is slandering me. She's holding a grudge because of the divorce and deliberately framing me. Framing? Grace pulled a stack of printed bank statements from her bag and threw them in front of him. Over the past 6 months, $8 million has been transferred out of the company's accounts, with the recipient accounts either being Tiffany's private card or her relatives' accounts. Is this also framing? The surrounding employees crowded around to look. Someone pointed at the dates on the statements. No wonder last month's salaries were delayed by 10 days. It turns out the money was all transferred out. I knew accountant had a new car recently and bought designer bags. Where did she get the money? Tiffany was the CFO. They played good cop, bad cop, manipulated accounts, and revised reports, emptying the company, then claimed it was facing a crisis, forcing Grace to abort the child and shoulder their debts. After the abortion, Grace stayed up night after night to thoroughly sort out these accounts. Grace picked up a transaction record. The signature on this document is forged. I have already had a handwriting expert examine it, and all the evidence has been filed. Upon learning that the evidence had been filed, Michael's legs buckled, and he almost collapsed to the floor. He looked at Grace, his eyes showing fear for the first time. Then, he knelt before Grace once more, grabbing Grace's pant legs with both hands. Only this time, in front of everyone. Grace, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. For the sake of our marriage, can you let me off just this once? I'll return the money. I'll cut ties with Tiffany, and I'll live a good life with you. Grace looked down at him. This man whom Grace had once poured her heart out for, now like a stray dog. Grace gently pulled her hand free and stepped back. When you just pointed your finger at me and called my unborn child some other man's child, why didn't you think of our marriage? He froze, his mouth open, unable to speak. Grace glanced again at the pale-faced Tiffany and suddenly smiled. Also, are you really sure that Tiffany's child is yours? Hearing this, Michael looked at Grace in disbelief. What do you mean by that? Grace smiled, shrugging her shoulders, and pointed at Tiffany. You should ask her. Michael abruptly got up from the floor. His face flushed. Impossible. That child must be mine. Tiffany and I were together every day when she was pregnant. But's eyes darted around frantically. For a false illusion. He had made a fool of himself. Then, Grace played another video, throwing the phone in front of him. See for yourself. In the video, Tiffany, heavily pregnant, wore the silk nightgown Michael had given her, but she was nestled in a strange man's arms. Grace had seen the man before. He was the VP of a partner company, and he had attended the company's cocktail party a while ago. Michael is an idiot. Michael still thinks this is his kid. Always doting on me, sending bird's nest and buying bags. Once the child is born and we get his money, we're going abroad. Tiffany touched her belly, smiling triumphantly. The man pinched her face. Once we get that money, we'll go abroad. Tiffany snuggled into his arms. The video wasn't long, just 2 minutes, but it was enough. Michael's fingers dug into the edge of the phone, his knuckles white, the screen distorted by his grip. After a long silence, he slowly turned his head to look at Tiffany, his eyes like ice. Is this true? The child in Tiffany's arms started crying, startled by his voice. She frantically patted the child's back, her eyes evasive, but at this point, she was powerless to refute, only looking at the investigators imploringly. Officers, Michael is the legal representative of the company. All documents were signed by him. I'm just a CFO. I had to do whatever he told me. I couldn't resist. He also forced me to transfer assets. I was coerced. You're full of it. Michael, like a lit powder keg, lunged forward and grabbed Tiffany's neck. You said you loved me, said you wanted to spend your life with me. You incited me to transfer assets, saying we'd have a good life with the child later. Now you want to push everything onto me? Tiffany gasped for air, her face turning purple, her limbs flailing. Let go. Let go of me. The people around them were paralyzed with fear by the sudden turn of events. The police, recovering quickly, rushed forward to intervene, shouting, Michael, stop! Let's talk this through. But's eyes were blazing with fury. He was beyond reason, deaf to anyone. He dragged Tiffany toward the window with astonishing strength. You lied to me. All of you lied to me. If I'm miserable, you won't get off easy either. Tiffany's nails raked bloody streaks across his arm as she screamed, Michael, you're crazy. Let me go. The baby is still here. Chaos erupted in the company lobby. Screams, pleas for them to stop, and a baby's cries mingled together. Grace stepped back 2 paces, leaning against the wall, watching the unfolding drama. No one had expected Michael to make such a sudden move. He pulled Tiffany, leaning out the window, and Tiffany struggled desperately. Then, a piercing scream tore through the air. Michael, still holding Tiffany, both fell out the window. A dull thud echoed from below, signaling heavy objects hitting the ground. The police rushed to the window, looked down, and grimly picked up their walkie-talkies to report. The employees were all horrified. Some collapsed to the floor, while others clutched their mouths, dry heaving. Grace walked to the window and glanced down. On the cement ground below, 2 blurry shapes lay there, quickly obscured by the crowd gathering around them. I felt nothing, no pain, no bitterness. It was like watching an inconsequential movie. The show was over, and it was time to leave. Dealing with the aftermath took some time. Michael and Tiffany's families caused a commotion for days, but after seeing the evidence, they had nothing left to say. The baby was taken by Tiffany's parents. I heard later that the child was adopted by Tiffany's brother. Grace retook control of the company. On her first day back, Grace gathered all the employees in the company lobby. Some of you helped Michael falsify accounts. Some assisted Tiffany in concealing data, and others, despite knowing the truth, chose to remain silent, even helping them to accuse me. The company needs a fresh start, and it doesn't need people like that. Grace had human distribute the termination contracts one by one. Some tried to plead for mercy, others to make excuses, but Grace gave them no opportunity. She restarted the hiring process, re-established regulations, and reconnected with the clients Michael had alienated. When things got busy, there wasn't even time to eat. 3 months later, the company's accounts were finally cleared, and it began to turn a profit. That evening, Grace stood in her office's floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the busy traffic below. Grace received a message on her phone from him. asking if she wanted to have dinner together. Grace replied with okay. She shut down her computer and locked the door. The lights in the hallway were on, casting Grace's solitary shadow. The wind blew in from outside, carrying a slight chill. Grace pulled her jacket tighter and walked forward, step by step. Let the past remain in the past. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support is the greatest motivation for us to share more stories of women's power. This is Love and Fist.